The night we shared one bed was supposed to be the end of everything, not the beginning of something neither of us had the courage to name. I still remember the way Claire's voice trembled in the dark, barely louder than a breath, when she whispered, "You don't hate me anymore, do you?" And in that moment, lying inches away from the person who once broke me, I realized the truth wasn't simple at all. Before we dive deeper into this story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of forgiveness, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us what it means to be human. My name is Adrian Brooks, and for most of my life, Claire Matthews was my constant. We grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, where the streets were lined with maple trees and every summer smelled like fresh-cut grass. Claire lived 3 houses down from mine. We met when we were 8 over a broken bicycle chain and a stubborn refusal to ask for help. She had scraped knees, messy brown hair, and a grin that made trouble look like adventure. We became inseparable. We shared everything: school lunches, secrets, dreams. She wanted to be a writer. I wanted to design buildings that touched the sky. We promised each other we'd leave that small town together, make something bigger of ourselves. And for a long time, it felt like nothing could come between us. Until something did. It happened in college. We both got into the same university in Chicago. It felt like fate had signed off on our plans. But somewhere between new friends, late nights, and the pressure of becoming someone, things changed. Claire changed. Or maybe I just hadn't seen all of her before. There was a night, one I tried to forget for years, when everything broke. I had spent weeks preparing for a major architecture competition, something that could launch my career. Claire knew how much it meant to me. And then, somehow, my design, my idea, ended up in someone else's hands. A classmate named Victor submitted a project that looked hauntingly similar to mine. Same concept, same structure, same soul. I confronted him, furious and desperate. He didn't deny it. But what crushed me wasn't his betrayal. It was what he said next. Claire showed it to me. He shrugged. She said, "You wouldn't mind." I remember laughing, not because it was funny, but because it had to be a lie. Claire would never do that, except she did. When I confronted her, she didn't fight back. She didn't deny it. She just stood there, eyes full of something I couldn't understand, and said, "I didn't think it would matter that much." That sentence destroyed something inside me, because it mattered. She mattered. She mattered. And in that moment, it felt like neither of those things meant anything to her. We stopped talking after that. No dramatic goodbye, no closure, just silence. Years passed. I moved to Seattle, built a career, surrounded myself with people who knew nothing about Claire Matthews. I told myself I had moved on, that I didn't care anymore. But some wounds don't heal. They just settle deeper. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got a call. Her mother. Her voice was older, softer, carrying a weight I hadn't heard before. "Adrian, Claire's in town. She doesn't have anywhere to go right now." I should have said no. Every logical part of me screamed to hang up, to protect the life I had rebuilt so carefully. But I didn't, because no matter how much time passed, Claire was still Claire. And some part of me never stopped caring. She showed up at my apartment 2 days later. She looked different, not just older, but worn, like life had taken more from her than it had given back. Her once bright eyes carried shadows. Her smile was smaller. "Hi, Adrian," she said softly. I nodded. Claire, that was it. No hugs, no apologies, just 2 strangers pretending they hadn't once meant everything to each other. I let her stay. It wasn't supposed to be complicated, just temporary, a couch, a few nights. Then she'd figure something out. But life rarely follows simple plans. That night, there was a problem. My apartment was small, 1 bedroom, 1 bed. "I can take the couch," I said. She shook her head. "It's your place. I'll manage." But the couch was broken, something I hadn't bothered fixing. And after a long silence, we both realized the only real option. We'd have to share the bed. It felt absurd. After everything, after years of silence and pain, we were back to this. Close, unavoidable. We lay on opposite sides, as far apart as possible, like the space between us could erase the past, but it couldn't. The silence was heavy, Every small movement felt amplified. Every breath, every shift in the sheets. And then, after what felt like hours, she spoke. "You're doing well," she said quietly. "I'm okay," I replied. Another pause. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The words hung in the air. I didn't respond, because sorry didn't undo what had happened. Sorry didn't give me back what I lost. And yet, hearing it still mattered more than I wanted to admit. "I didn't understand back then," she continued. I thought it was just an assignment. I didn't realize what it meant to you, or what you meant to me." I closed my eyes. "It wasn't just about the project, Claire." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I know now." Silence again, but this time it felt different. Not empty, just fragile. And then came the moment that changed everything. Her voice, barely a whisper in the dark. "You don't hate me anymore, do you?" I swallowed hard, because the truth was complicated. For years I thought I did. It was easier that way. Easier to hold on to anger than to face what was underneath. But lying there, hearing the vulnerability in her voice, I realized something. I never hated her. I was just hurt. "I don't hate you," I said finally. She let out a quiet breath, like she'd been holding it for years. And for the first time since she arrived, the distance between us didn't feel so wide. The distance between us didn't feel so wide. That night didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the past or magically rebuild trust. But it opened a door. Over the next few days, we talked more. About everything we never said. She told me about the years after college, how things fell apart, how she struggled to find her place, how guilt followed her longer than I ever knew. And I told her about my journey, the successes, and the quiet loneliness that came with cutting someone important out of my life. Slowly, carefully, we started to rebuild something. Not what we had before, something new, something honest. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the city lights flicker on, she turned to me and said, "Do you think people really get second chances?" I thought about it. About us, about everything we lost and everything we were slowly finding again. And there, I think, I said, it depends on whether they are willing to change, and whether someone is willing to believe in that change. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more people who need them. And before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Comment the word "second chance" if you believe people can grow and deserve forgiveness. Claire didn't stay forever. She found her footing again, got a small apartment, started writing like she always dreamed. And me, I learned something I should have understood long ago. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing not to let it define the future. The night we shared one bed didn't erase the pain, but it gave us something more powerful, a beginning we never thought we'd have again, and sometimes that's enough.